Morning, Anambra. This morning, the discussion segment. My name is still Ajuluchuku Okawe, and this morning we shall be talking about the rested counter-subversion bill. And in the studio this morning, we have Barrister Chris Arukwe, a public affairs analyst. But before we get to Barrister Chris Arukwe, let us make you understand that I'm not running the show alone. I'm also here with Chiruma Oranwa, my co-anchor.
All right, good morning, good people. We are right here at the discussion segment of the show. Just like Afajulu said, this morning we are going to be talking about the counter-subversion bill. We know that it has been withdrawn by the Speaker of the House of Representative Abbas Tajuddin, and he announced this on the 14th of August 2024.
That's very, very interesting, because under this bill, a whole lot. Sometimes I begin to wonder if we are running a feudal state in this country, because this bill, if there was any way this bill would have passed Senate hearing and then been passed into law, probably Nigerians would probably lose every atom of freedom they have.
I heard somebody saying that maybe we would have had another protest by now.
By now, probably, because then, I don't really know, but I believe with the barrister here amongst us, he will definitely get to tell us probably why the bill was shut down at the first instance. Barrister Chris, glad to have you this morning.
Oh,
you're looking good.
Oh, welcome. We're all catching cold there and catching hunger too.
All right.
What's your submission on this bill that was just jettisoned as soon as it read its ugly head at the National Assembly?
Well, a whole lot of people have come down on the bill. Mine will just to add to the voice of the majority of the people who have put down the bill as desperate action by desperate people. It was just something rehearsed and hurriedly made up to counter legitimate struggle, legitimate show of freedom of association, freedom to strike, freedom to protest. And if you look at this bill and look at what is happening in America over the night, where the Palestinian immigrants in America are holding the DNC almost at ransom. And the American personnel, military personnel and police personnel mobilized well over 600 and something thousand personnel to make sure there's a barricade between the protesters and the DNC people who are doing their convention this yesterday in 4 days' time, running 4 days and all that. You see, these are people who would have caused the shutdown of that convention, but they were allowed to operate. They were allowed to operate by the instruments of the state. All they needed to do is to voice out what they want from the Democratic Party. Something like seizure of hostilities in Gaza, permanent solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and all that. And Kamala is going to address them. So this is how society, a normal society functions. If you remove my freedom, it's really the freedoms that are guaranteed under Section 4 of the Constitution, Charter 4, running from Section 39 to 41 and all the rest of it. Then what is left of a human being, if you remove his freedom of association, freedom of to come out, freedom to speak, freedom to make friends from anywhere he wants to go, freedom of movement. Then freedom to own properties. The human being is no longer a human being, because these rights are called inalienable. It was not created by you, it was created by the supreme being, that the God. That is what it means, is that no human instrument, God, man, or any type of God can remove such
privileges from
privileges. It's not a privilege, it's a right.
Right, yeah.
Privilege is something you can enjoy that can be removed from one time or the other. But your right cannot be removed except on the order of a court.
Okay. All right, thank you so much for that submission. Let's just look at some section or part of this bill. Yeah. Section 8 of the bill seeks to punish any person who destroys national symbols, refuses to recite the national anthem and pledge, defaces or abuses a place of worship with the intention to cause violence and subvert the government of Nigeria. Now, you know what the penalty is saying, that the person will be after conviction, a fine of 5 million naira or imprisonment of a term of for 10 years, or both of them, paying 5 million naira and going to a jail for 10 years. Now, this penalty for this particular offenses, is it not so harsh?
Yes, in law they say a good law is that kind of law that is capable of being obeyed. The qualities of a good law. You can see that this law does, what aspects of our life does it meet up with? The punishment should not be based on severity. It should be based on reformation, reorientation, readaptation, and deterrence. Actually, punishment should be aimed at reforming and an aspect of deterrence. It should not be punitive, extremely punitive. And then somebody who does not want to stand where the national anthem, a anthem, is being sung, it is still within his freedom, he's exercising his fundamental right. Because there might be stanzas of that national anthem that is against his person, against his religion. There are people who don't take blood transfusion because it is their fate.
Their fate.
You know that, even at the peril of death. And if you dare give them blood transfusion, you have gone against their fate, and it's suable and arguable. So the kind of punishment you have here is the kind of Romanic thing you saw in Gestapo environment, draconian. The drafters are not people of a background of paternalism. You know, the law should not be draconian. The law should not be something that you put somebody in a crocodile-infested farm just because he has stolen a sheaf of corn. So the punishment does not match the severity of the offense, and therefore the law is unlawful in itself because it's the severity, the animalistic thing. You know, when you go to the law of tort, you're not even supposed to put dangerous traps for animals. You're supposed to kill these wild animals in a benign situation, not to talk of
Human
beings. So there are things, a gamut of law that guides conduct. And when you want to make a law, you make sure, do we have a parent law? Do we have a superseding law? A law that is superior than the one you're making. You know, there's a hierarchy of law. You have the Constitution, which is the ground norm. You have the acts of the Parliament, which is their second rank and all that. You then have the decisions of the court. And the decisions of the court, particularly the Supreme Court, can once in a while topple the ground norm, the Constitution. Because if you whittle down any part of the Constitution, what becomes the law of the land is the law of the order of the court of the Supreme Court, for example, or order of any court, legitimate court in the country. So these legislations, because they don't have people who are good in what they're doing, they don't have good draftsmen, they don't have people who scrutinize this thing. This thing has not gone through proper legislative conduct. There are processes of making a good law. You have to make public hearing is part of it. Public hearing is absolutely very, very necessary. Stakeholders input.
I can't even remember the last time you did that. I mean,
if you don't do that, you are cutting the procedural process of making a law. And the law should be a good law for it to be obeyed. That's the essence of what we're saying. If the law is not good, it is incapable of being obeyed, it's incapable of giving harsh punishment over and above the damage, the mischief you are trying to cure. So this law is not worth spending time on, because the person who drafted it lacks humanity, lacks cognate knowledge of what the law is, lacks what they call social engineering. He doesn't even know his duty to man. There are basic norms. You don't need to be a lawyer. There are basic norms you already know that you don't have to cough in order to spirit on your neighbor. There are certain things you don't do because the interconduct teaches you that you don't have to do this to your neighbor.
Still on this issue of the counter-subversive bill, there are instances where we saw peddling, damaging information that could cause, unrest. You understand? Misinformation, social media, and the rest of it all. Don't you think that could actually be something that is debatable, that social media has really misinformed people and then caused, let's say, uprising in some parts of the country?
No. What we are living in a free society. We're in the 21st century, where the ICT, Freedom of Information Act, and when you become a leader, there are certain things that are no longer of a personal value to you. We should know about your health, we should know about your height, we should know about your food preferences, we should know about your history. So whenever a citizen begins to talk about his president in a manner to show that his president is not doing well, that could not be called subversive. He's exercising a freedom guaranteed under the gamut of laws, African Charter, United Nations Charter, the Constitution of the land. Immediately you become a leader, you are susceptible to public scrutiny, adverse public scrutiny. You can see what is happening in America, in the American debate. They are digging into to know whether Kamala Harris has any debt that can be used to bring her down. They are tracing her ancestry down to the last drop of blood. They want to know whether she's actually black, red, or white, colored, or all the rest of it. So she's into very deep scrutiny. There's nothing that has not been said about Harris.
There's nothing wrong in being scrutinized as a public figure, but what of the citizens that make unverified information about the government and then throw it there for the public domain, and then people begin to react to that? Things do happen in the social media, and a whole lot of misinformation by citizens, even by oppositions, you understand, could get into the public domain, and then you see people reacting to that.
There are laws already that could take care of those kind of excesses, Cybercrime Act and all those kind of things, So, but they now criminalizing legitimate public scrutiny, legitimizing that ABS staff decided to stage a small walkout because salaries have not been paid. You call it subversive. What they said in one of the sections or chapter is that you must be a registered body. You must come and register.
For you to protest.
For you to even have a walkout or walkout. It's not done. It's never been done. It's never done. So there's no way you can justify any aspect of this legislation. It came out of desperate action to stifle the hunger strike that was to be a wide nation act, to bring the attention of the government to the poverty, to the excruciating poverty in the land, to the deprivation in the land, to the ostentatious living of the governance, to the private buying of jets where people are dying, to the construction of intercoastal.
How spacious the jets are.
Yes, without disclosing the amount.
Yes, the building of intercoastal roads where people are dying, where the interstate roads are in bullish conditions, the spate of kidnapping going around all the places, the death, the killings. These are what people are, and then the misgovernance. INEC and its illegality. These are what people are saying. Enough is enough. These are people who are not carrying guns. These people are people who are not carrying clubs. They do not have any other weapon except the voice of the saint. What is the offense? Because you want to stifle this riot, you quickly drafted a draconian version of the Romanic order. A tooth for a tooth, a slap for a slap. You dare not come out Citizens were being warned. Ohaneze was bought into it. Don't allow Igbo man, the blood of Igbo man will be used to cleanse the land and all that. As far as I'm concerned, that is crap. If there's hunger, forget our new Igbo billionaires. If there's hunger, you feel it and I feel it. If there's misgovernance, it doesn't matter who is governing.
It cuts across.
It cuts across because it could be Peter Obi tomorrow. He could be doing wrongly. Are you saying because it's Peter Obi, Igbo should not protest? That is a wrong notion of how things are done. Who will take the Igbo serious again in this country? They made themselves a laughing stock. What was envisaged was a national strike. And strike has a way. You can strike by staying home. You can strike by avoidance. There are all sorts of things you can do to show that you are not happy. Who is happy? Who is happy in Nigeria? Except the people who are buying aircrafts. Except people who are traveling to United Nations on conferences. Except people who are managing our affairs. And the rest of them.
All right, another contentious area I want us to talk about is Section 13 that is saying about anybody or authority that will always want to disrespect a constituted authority in Nigeria. I mean, constituted rules and regulation, that it will contravene the law, and also it's an offense by the person. Of course, the penalty is the same 5 million naira or going for 10 years in jail. Now, don't you think that because we know that it's been withdrawn, but we are talking about had this thing come to reality, I mean this particular bill, don't you think that our leaders or people who voted into power will use it against opposition, especially this particular segment, because they will feel that anybody talking to them is disrespecting them, anybody telling them or criticizing what they are doing, that the person is actually disrespecting a constituted authority.
Yes, you see that the whole section or gamut of the envisaged bill is a mere piece of trash dredged up by whoever drafted is not an illiterate, but a man who lacks humanity. What it means, disrespect to constituted authority is maybe the governor comes in here, you are supposed to stand up and you don't stand up, and you are supposed to remove your cap, you don't remove your cap, and you're whisked away as subversive. The other day, the DSS invaded NLC or headquarters in Abuja, looking for a link between sponsorship of the protest and all that. Ajero has been taken in and all that. You see that what they actually wanted to do is that Tinubu, the president of Nigeria, would stop being criticized. That any place he appears, that people must genuflect, that people must bow their head, that people must not come in dissent, people must not utter a word that is against his person, his office, or his governance. It is all calculated to gag free speech. It is an assault on Chapter 4 of the Constitution. The law will not have seen the day in a legitimate court process because it has variance with the intention, direct interpretation of Chapter 4 dealing on fundamental human rights. Those fundamental human rights are called fundamental because you own it as a person. If the blood runs in your vein, these rights are inalienable. They cannot be removed, breached, derogated from in a way or manner except through a due process of a court process. So whatever they have written, all aspects of it is a direct assault, a direct breach to the fundamental rights of citizens of Nigeria, as captured in Chapter 4 in relevant subsection, going down to 45, from 31, 39 to 45 and thereabout. Freedom to own property, freedom of association, freedom to meet people, freedom to join groups and all that. Those freedoms are guaranteed. We copied our constitution from the American norm, and you know that America is the bastion of freedom. You can see the number of times they have amended their constitution, because their constitution was drawn up by their own direct citizens who know that freedom is all that is in this life and in this pursuit. If a man does not have freedom, when he's in chain, he's a slave. He cannot be productive. He cannot argue. So what they want from us is that we can be made slaves in the land of our fathers. Our voice can be removed from us, and our rights to come out to have fresh air could be tagged protest and anti-government activity. This thing did not even come under Abacha. Abacha didn't get to this level because there were protests during Abacha's time. And I remember that Igbos came down on the guys that were doing a yam festival, vacated Lagos, vacated all the northern part of Nigeria, and Nigeria almost collapsed. Various governors pleaded with Igbos please to return. This was done at the behest of Odumegwu Ojukwu, who called Igbos home. And I don't know why our governors are not telling that, trying to imitate our amiable eminence, Odumegwu Ojukwu.
Probably they don't want to.
And you can now know that somebody who said that Igbos must go comes under such subversive legislation. You wake up in Nigeria, you profile people, criminalize a group of ethnic hegemonous community, a people of pure breed and race. You want them to leave their investment, and the constitution of the land guarantees your right to own property in any part of the land, and you want them to leave because they have invested in your land so that you can inherit their properties and become rich without work. It's sad, but we must continue.
Yeah, indeed, we really must continue. But then, like you said, the government probably thought it twice and decided to jettison this. Now, when we're talking about encroaching or impeding the fundamental rights of human beings, how does that go in tandem with the government of the day, faced with myriads of not living up to the responsibility and then looking for a way out in order to make it seem as if they are pushing for better governance after the bad governance protest that we just had not too long ago?
Nobody knows how much was spent, what energy, resources were spent to make the effect of the protest not to be as vast as it should have been, because it's the same type of process that nearly crippled Kenya. It's the same type of process that is crippling Venezuela, Bangladesh, a couple of other places in the world. Because this level of poverty, this level of hunger is never ever seen in any part of the world, and they remain silent. Whatever they have done in regards to the fallout of the protest, nobody knows. They talk about palliative, they talk about SNG, that is what they normally tout, the SNG buses, how innocent have been asked to produce. These are long-term things. When you have a short-term problem, you look for short-term solutions. You don't grow a palm tree because you want to cook ofaku this evening. What you need to do is to go to where you will get the palm kernel, either from your neighbor or by any other means, even by stealing. So there are things that I can see that are brazen. There are things that can halt this quagmire, this decline. What caused it in the very, very first place is the removal of subsidy, petroleum subsidy, the devaluation of the naira, and
not tackling insecurity too.
And without requisite provision for the counterpart, because there's always a reaction to an action. One dangerous action produces another dangerous reaction. The physics, they say action and reaction are equal and opposite. So what do? You're going to remove the subsidy. Thematically and argumentatively, or even not being an economist, so speaking, everybody says it is the subsidy that is killing the economy. Yes. Let us even assume, without considering, that the subsidy, removal of it is beautiful. Then how do you remove it? Does a surgeon carry out the removal of hernia by removing your kidney? You have to try to make sure for things that will have far-reaching effect, because the transport sector controls the outward engine, which is the life we live. You floated the naira to achieve its own levels, and the market forces, it is when your economy is strong that you allow your naira to float to achieve its own international marketability. But when you're doodling, you do not produce, you do not feed your countrymen, your petroleum production, you don't meet your quota. So if you remove the one sector element that the majority of Nigerians enjoy, that is the welfare element induced in the subsidy thing, everything goes spiral and descend into the valley. And that is what happened in Nigeria. I think India, for example, they tried the removal of this subsidy. It brought about topsy-turvy events that they could not even handle. What they did is they went and put back the subsidies.
But a lot of people are still saying that the subsidy is back, that they didn't even remove it.
Because even in the paper we read today, Kiari denied that NNPC is still paying for subsidy.
Yes.
Yeah, something is wrong. I need to tell you that something is wrong, and our audience is a limited place where somebody can vent his mind and not get shot on the road and all that. What we are saying is that we know that half of the things we hear, half of the things we view on the television, half of the things that is sent out to us is not the real story. Did anybody, without coincidence, know that our worthy president of the richest country in Africa, had bought an Airbus 33A, cozy, long leg, long stretch, beautiful baby at France, domiciled at France? What a country. The process of buying the jet did not go through appropriation or budgeting system. Is it not an impeachable offense if you had a parliament? You make a purchase of such a humongous magnitude. Because one, that aspect of purchase should have gone through legislative scrutiny. One, to know whether there's a desirability, a necessity, affordability. Where presidents of country and sovereign nations are now traveling in commercial vehicles, that is commercial Airbuses, They're flying economy all over the place because we have a global downturn. It is not only Nigeria that is going through a global downturn. America is having its own share of price rise and all that. And the Republicans are trying to blame the Democrats. But the Democrats are saying it's a worldwide tide. Yeah. French is even shriveling because all African countries where France were milking their indigenous are all over taking back their resources from France. And France is on its own. So what we are saying is that what we see, what we hear from the government is not the truth. It's not the truth.
Okay.
We have always spoken. Political pundits are those people who really speak what the truth is. Have always said that subsidy, Buhari kept saying it when he was campaigning. People took him serious. That he does not understand subsidy. That subsidy is a corruption of a magnitude, of a nature not known to man. One of the other political heavyweights from this our extraction have also said that the issue is not about subsidy. It is about the corruption that surrounds its implementation. If you had removed subsidy on October 1 when you were sworn in, publish the figures of returns from the subsidy and where you have plowed it in. Did you use it to buy the aircraft A33A? Did you use it to flag off the intercoastal road from intercoastal highway, because that one is no longer road, from Lekki to Calabar? Tell us where you have it.
Or for the CNG buses.
Or you have given Innocent $200 trillion to buy CNG buses. And which are the roads people are going to use these buses?
All right, please hold your thoughts on that. Let's take a short break. We need to get some of the interviewees we met on the streets. Let's know what their opinions are concerning what we are discussing today. Stay with us.
Counter-Subversion should be examined properly with the existing Nigerian constitution to know whether it is in tandem with the existing constitution. If it is not, the bill is unconstitutional. It should be an issue of constitutional matter. So if it is not in tandem with Nigerian constitution, the bill should not see the light of the day. If it is examined properly and find whether it runs contrary to existing constitution, then it can't be. I think that should be the best thing about that.
The Counter-Subversion bill is an attempt to silence Nigeria. I do know that before now there is freedom of speech enshrined in the constitution of this nation. So coming up with any other law that will silence the masses, that no one can open up and say something is wrong or right, I think it is not in agreement with the exact laws of this nation. I am of the opinion that particular bill or law, whatsoever it is, should not see the light of day. It is against Nigerians and it is completely unacceptable. Yes, it is against Nigerians. We must be allowed to air our views. We must be allowed to challenge the government, to question the actions of the government when something is going wrong. When you make a bill that will make the masses not to question the actions of the government, then we are more or less imprisoned. And that is completely unacceptable.
Not at all, because even in the military regime, there are still elements of liberation, there are still elements of the freedom of their opinions and their species. So it is quite unfortunate that in this republic, in a democratic dispensation, that such a bill will be shabbily and secretly
passed in a maneuvering way that Nigerians are not fully aware of it. There was no public hearing. It is very bad, honestly, because at this point of inflation, the rate I think Nigeria is about at 5% here. The inflation risk now, about at 5%. And the whole system, the whole economy, everything increment, and the price of dollar to naira is very high. The whole system, Nigerians are going through a lot. There is scarcity of petrol. Petrol now is about 1,000 naira per liter. There are a lot of issues in Nigeria that should be handled. I don't think that one is very necessary. That is one. Secondly, is that it is anti-democratic. It is anti-democratic. Honestly, it is not. It should not be considered at this time at all.
All right, you're welcome back to the show. You see, our street parliamentarians, they are actually re-echoing all that you state here, because most of them are saying that this bill actually was just to silence Nigerians. But thank God that it's been rested. But we are here discussing about it. What would have become of Nigerians had it been this bill was passed into law? But then again, I want to ask the question: does it mean that there is no aspect of this bill that we can applaud? Because there is a session that said that anybody that uses military emblems or wearing their uniform or their stickers of the car when you are not part of the military, that of course you've committed an offense. Well, don't you think that particular aspect we can actually applaud it, even though that the penalty it's quite a little above board, because you are expected to pay the sum of 2 million naira?
Let me just tell you something. When something is rotten from the head, it is palpably bad. You can't hoist something on nothing. You know, the word we used to know when we were growing up is a hood does not make a monk. That's where you watch the American people. You see they are green military. Is that dress? Is it that what makes you a military man? It's not. If I decide to wear DNJ's dress today, does it make me a DNJ student? It's my choice of color. It's my freedom. It is only when I use an identification mark, my opulence, give myself a rank, give myself an identification, a resemblance of the order of the military, military unit. When I now begin to give over myself as attached to B division or Battalion X at Onitsha and all the rest of it. And who doesn't make a month? It's not because these people are idle. Somebody you pay 29 million a month. What do you expect? Those people are overfed. They wallow in extreme luxury. Because 29 million naira in a country that is poor is a lot of money. What can you not do with 29 million naira, knowing that next month another 29 million naira is coming? Where do our fine ladies buy all these their Lexus Jeeps and all that from them? All the gossip you hear, you read in the blogs and blogs, you kind of think they are wrong. These are people who have the money. And this 29 million naira is not limited to it. What of the budget pardon? Most of these senators are richer than governors, are richer than some of our governors and all that. And that is why you have the struggle to go to the Senate, the struggle to go to the House of Representatives is so daunting. It's so do or die. Because it's only one occupation you can go without working. Because nothing is required of you. Wear your best dress, when you sleep a little bit and they say, hey, Anna, yeah, you raise your bloody hand, and that's the end of the day. After a stressful 1 month, they go on vacation. Who would not like to do a job like that? Of course me, yes. It is my own paradise if I can. It's my own idea of paradise. Me coming over here, I had to wake up by 7, in spite of the cold and all that. These people don't give a damn. They start sitting by 11, 12, and sit for a few hours of luxury and banter and chatter, and they go home. What have they done? Oversight. Every day you hear of oversight. Oversight on what? Jonathan empaneled a committee to oversee the subsidy element attached to petroleum. Somebody went to prison. Farouk. You remember that? Farouk went to prison and is still in prison because of the fallout from the committee on investigation of, because this thing is fraud. What is it all about? That your ship has bettered with 400 trillion of
liters of
fuel, and it is in the coast of Abidjan. I don't really know that kind of geography, but I'm just making examples all over the place. And that it is only needed to be signed. The minister will sign, or his people will sign. The CBN will be directed to pay, and the money is shared. And that is why everybody is in oil and gas in Nigeria. If you haven't seen the wealth of Nigeria displayed, go to Abuja and Lagos. Where do you think that these multi-billionaires are created in Nigeria, a country that is the poverty capital of the world, and yet you have a burgeoning, growing billionaire class? Where is their factories? What do they produce? I wish we could just talk about it. What have they done as a legislative body to ameliorate the anguish, what people are passing through? Somebody died because he couldn't buy an inhaler in 21st century Nigeria at Enugu. When some people provided the money, about 16,000 or 19,000, they went through all New Haven looking for a pharmacy that has an inhaler because it's imported and it's scarce. When they finally got one, the woman has given up. Yet it's a country. It's a country where you can no longer travel on the road. It's a country where a director cannot enter an aeroplane to go to another city because his 4 months' salary cannot afford a return ticket. It's a country where only the rich, the super rich, fly, and the poor travel on the road only to be kidnapped and heavy ransom paid. It's a circle. What have our legislators done?
Well, they've implemented 70% minimum, 70,000 minimum wage.
You are inviting me to anarchy. You are inviting me to anarchy. When you say that your minimum wage is 70,000 naira, well, have you really calculated what is the purchasing power of 70,000 naira in a common market in Nigeria? A reasonable tuber of yam is 7,000, 5,000. One tuber.
A bag of rice?
A bag of rice is 75, 80,000, depending on the quality you want to buy. Then yet it's your minimum wage. Is it not laughable? Then instinctively, without thought, to correlation between service points, you increase the salaries of judges by 300% and award a wage increase of only 70,000. to the public service, the civil service. It's laughable. The 70,000 naira is gone with the winds. It ran foul before it landed. It's a product of illicit negotiation. It wasn't distilled out of reality of the open market situation in Nigeria. What can 70,000 naira buy for you?
The private sector has still complained that even the 70,000 naira cannot be met by them.
The private sector is not exposed.
Where are you too far? What about some state government that say that they cannot pay?
The public sector, the petrol filling station person who employs 10 to 15 people doesn't need to pay minimum wage. It's there in the legislation, and the legislation is all over the world. When you are employing your domestic staff, it is by direct negotiation. So when you don't have more than 25% in your employ, you are not included in the minimum wage bracket. So that's not even the problem. Because many of the people who work in the private sector, the economy cannot afford the profit level to pay such staff. And these are people who are actually on contract staff, on contract hiring. So those are not our problem. Their problem is, does the minimum wage in the country take you out of poverty? It doesn't.
Okay, one would have expected that the House of Rep members, the senators, in fact, the leadership of this country would have done better, because this bill came amid the time we are protesting to end bad governance and to also, make life more, stable for the citizens of this country. We are expecting them to do something, because we have a whole lot of demands, demanding that things be done the right way, but they came up with this. Does it mean that the protest, the end bad governance protest, that we are not going to get anything out of it?
You know what happened? They hurriedly, you know that the minimum wage came before the protest. They hurriedly negotiated and directly negotiated with the president. The leadership of the two unions hurriedly went, and only God knows how the negotiation was arrived, how 70, because these people were talking about 250,000.
250.
And you didn't meet them halfway. You didn't meet them at 100. You didn't meet them at 150, 120. You met them at 70. And the labor people said that they are satisfied because the president promised them CNG.
And review after 3 years.
And the regular review after 3 years and all that. It's trash. It's trash.
And today they've invited the leadership of NLC, accusing him of terrorism.
So it's laughable that the vice president of the country, Shetima, over the past 2 days, said that a reasonable person, a reasonable youth who is given 8,000 can become rich from it.
In this country?
Yeah, that's what he said. And the only way you can get rich from 8,000 is by winning lottery. There's something they call this type of lottery, the one that blows everybody.
Betting, sports betting.
The kind of money you win, the jackpot. Not just your regular winning. You have to win a jackpot. The one that keeps ringing. That's the only way you can get rich. But the regular payback, 8,000 you have invested in a lottery or pool or any that, cannot make you rich. It's not possible, because it starts to earning capacity and all that. The one that will make you rich is the jackpot, which comes once in a blue moon. So is he saying that domestically, if his wife is provided with 8,000, that he can cook a meal, she can cook a meal for him to eat after he has come back from his work? A governor in this country budgeted 19 billion for buying of utensils and entertainment and cooking for his wife in one of the northern states.
19 million.
19 billion.
Cooking utensils.
Cooking utensils, kitchen, feeding and all that. 19 billion.
Well, I think we can't go any further now because we have the sports segment and the anchor is already around. Well, we'll say a very big thank you to you. I don't know why our mood is in this manner, but then again, we need to go. We want to say a very big thank you to you, Barrister Arupe, for joining us on the discussion segment of Good Morning Anambra.
The only way you can find laughter is when you build the cathedral of happiness in your heart, knowing that they don't own your heart, they don't own your soul. They can own your body by the injuries and storms they inflict on it. But if you insulate your spirit, as said, even this storm will come and go. How God fixes it, nobody will know. But actually, it requires a divine intervention. Otherwise, there is no expectations. They normally say there's a silver lining in the clouds there. You can see the clouds are all
at the end of the tunnel.
Yes, you can see the clouds are all sleeping, dark, and provides only gloom and doom. So I say thank you, God, that we're alive. When you're breathing, it gives you the capacity to make your contribution or your voice to be heard. Ordinarily, we live in an alien time. Times that when our people who govern us do not even know who we are. Because if they knew who we are, they would not buy A380, a jet, a bus. They will not do intercoastal routes at prices that shuts down the World Bank. May God bless Nigeria once again.
Amen. Well, that's it on the program this morning. Good Morning Anambra on ABS TV. See you again tomorrow. My name is Chidinma Oramo.
And I'm Ajulu Chukwu Okawe. Have a nice day. God bless.